Hey, the story so far. First day, Victor marched up and did a headlong attack across to where the British had deployed up on this hill after brushing aside some light forces here. And he got repulsed and battered. Overnight, a lot of command issues basically taking place, but not much else. As soon as morning came, Victor started an artillery bombardment which has cleared out the British artillery, which was probably the worst situation or the worst factor in terms of, like, this is a very defensible position up on this hill. But the artillery was like plowing into units that were getting shaken by crossing to the stream. And it was just a horrible situation where the French just got repulsed very easily. However, we got orders to flank more and hit from two flanks of the hill. Before we were hitting from the south and east. Now it's going to be more to the north and east, but Payne's Cav has made its way up here. It's fully recovered. Anson got his horsies back. And so that's going to be some problem that we're going to face where the terrain is actually a little better for approaching. The rest are going to cross the stream again. Kind of crazy. This is being done on Victor's initiative, which means his chances of giving up are quite high. Orders are underway getting to Fourth Corps here, which has orders to kind of support this attack, presumably from the south. Well, from the south, but they're not in place yet. And meanwhile, Joseph is actually showing up on the board and could call. Who's in charge here? Sebastiani, who is only a 1 leader. Joseph's is 0, Jourdan's 2. The chances of getting orders to the Fourth Corps are to the Fourth Corps are not very good, but they're better than the written orders that I'm waiting to get there that just got tremendously delayed. We have one more unit. This DS looks like a division, basically, that'll be coming in at some point soon and joining the army here. These Cav have not moved forward. I could actually pull, these are just dragoons, so they're not high quality as Cav, but I could try to get orders over to them to support something, but I don't know what they'd support. I do have a little bit of Cav. I have these guys, which I could actually shift around, but they haven't bothered to do so yet. It's not enough to face the British Cav, but at least it might, prevent them from throwing too many infantry into square and slowing that attack down more than it should. I have a lot of latitude here where I could let these guys try to advance, not advance here and just continue the artillery bombardment, until such a time as I feel like I'm actually in position to launch the attack that I have. Once I do get into that position, I do feel like my intention is to hit with everything, but I don't think I have to charge across here before these guys deploy. It's kind of weird. Written orders, you're supposed to follow whatever the intent is. It's hard to tell what my intent was, right? I just scratched something down and now I'm like, well, wait, is that what I really mean? How much latitude should I have? The game is a little fuzzy on that kind of thing. You're supposed to have quite a bit of latitude. So I don't know. Okay, so we're in a position where the assault's just about to start. The French haven't fired their initial artillery or anything like that. And it's not going to be a blind rush. We're going to try to move across here. We're going to get hit by Cav and frozen. And it's just not going to get off quite as exciting as you might think. However, I did want to pop in, not just to say that, but Joseph is giving orders to Jordan, and this is a little different. So like normally the way I arrange my orders, and it's not necessarily how you should, I have a number, an identifier of the unit and which order it is, when it's going to arrive. I's are initial at the beginning of the game. Method and type is weird. I probably should have other information on there, like I don't have the method that it's written or in person marked down here. I'm not sure why. I really should be keeping track of that where necessary, but so far in this game it hasn't really been that important. So I just put the type, whether it's complex, engage, or simple. Engage and complex are essentially the same. The actual order itself, and then its status, I use a circle to indicate it's been accepted. I put a D number. Well, yeah, I don't have any there. But I put a D number, like over here there's a D4, to indicate that the order is being considered. A DT for it's distorted. I put a square around it when that happens, just to remind me. And then an X once it's dead. Any order that's dead, it gets an X and has no more effect. But things are different because of Jordan. And what I had to do here was here under arrival, because it's based on Jordan, I put a J there for arrival time. And then he rolled his acceptance. He got a D5. He can't even start on his way, if I recall correctly. Maybe I've got this wrong. But I think he can't start on his way until... French command. Jordan may roam the board freely. So one of the issues here is Joseph can only issue in-person verbal orders all game. So I don't actually have to distinguish for him. And Wellington, all his orders are pretty much starting orders except for this one, which I sent to the Army Command itself, which again had to be in-person order, I guess. It didn't have to be. But Jordan can roam freely. That sounds like I can walk him around. He can be used to transmit orders. This is done by Jordan first accepting the order himself and then moving to the commander. I get the feeling, see, he's allowed to roam freely, so I think he can wander over considering the order, but that seems to go against. This is done by Jordan first accepting the order himself, then moving to the commander in question, then reissuing the order. I don't know how to take that may roam the board freely along with that, right? I feel like he's got to stick around with Joseph and discuss the order more. Forgot about one thing about British Cav. They have a special rule. They must be stacked with a commander to break off. So they go right to the repulse table and get mauled, charging into the square and whatever. And yeah, it sucks to be the Brits, doesn't it? Charge of the Light Brigade or something here. Yeah, the attack starts out, and I mean, the English Cav is just, it's all broken. I mean, it's all blown, all took a hit. It's just bad. And yeah, they stop the French for a little bit, but now they have to recover to do that again. And each time they take a casualty, the chances of them doing any damage to the French is just about nothing. I probably shouldn't have them committed. I am sending some French Cav up to deal with the English Cav for whatever value that is. It's part of First Corps there. First Corps is launching attacks here, covering in this direction against Mackenzie in case he gets frisky. And up this way, leaving a gap in the center. I'm going to probably fill that in, but right now I want to leave room for my artillery to trade shots. Fourth Corps is connecting up a little bit better now that, now that part of the First Corps is moving into position to attack. So I've got basically 3 divisions, 1, 2, 3, and then what this is. Probably part of this division here. I don't know. I think there's only 3 divisions in that thing. Yeah. And then you got Joseph moving forward. You've got the, whatever his name is, Diaz Desol. There's no I in there. Moving forward as well. Not a lot's going to happen here. I haven't moved into range for even the skirmishers to fire. So all I get is the one Spanish gun, I guess, fires. To note, we're going into the British turn now. That gun didn't do anything. Because I didn't engage, all these units shaken through going over the stream are not anymore. But this was the problem, is that I was going across the stream and hitting the British immediately, which is what I did not want to do. And with the additional effect of being able to get my artillery to fire another round or 2. Seems like it's worth doing what I did. Coffee's hitting me kind of hard, so I think I'll walk away and hit the Brits a little bit later. Even though I'm feeling jittery from the coffee, I came back up after just a wee bit of spamming because Raid is about to take over. Some good news, a big shipment of my tobacco came. I had run out of my favorite. Unfortunately, I still ordered not a strong enough concentration of the Black Cavendish. I have way too much of my pale vanilla right now. So the English have a serious question. Do they want to just take the defensive position that they're holding and let the French come to them? Or do they want to sweep down the hill? And, you know, either way, they're going to get the advantage of moving downhill, which means that the French will check morale first, right? And, you know, the question comes down to, do I want to give up this hill position to charge down or whatever? Is there any advantage to that? There may be if I could get at these squares. Hitting units in square has to be good for me, right? I'm not sure. Doesn't really look it. Doesn't really look it. I guess they form up into a phalanx type thing, and yeah. So I don't see any real advantage to it. Whereas defending in line does give me some slight advantages. The only problem is, if the French can move quickly enough, maybe through a forced march or something, they might be able to hit me from a flank or something. But I think I'll prepare more for a defensive position than anything else. I could also roll for some kind of initiative with Mackenzie here, and maybe Campbell, and see about sending them forward. But alternatively, I have Wellesley close enough. He could probably actually lead some sort of relief attack on this side, which might make sense. Which direction am I going? That's a good question. I think it's low to high going up this way. I don't really have a color distinguishment anywhere, do they? I am not seeing anything that tells you what the different heights are. And that is kind of problematic here. So like, I think this is like a little divot because it's paler colored. But yeah, there really should be a level distinguishing chart. I always have trouble with these maps anyhow. The seriously contoured maps, as opposed to the layer cake that they used to use, is just really hard because they use so many different colors. But you know, this looks pale, this looks darker, this looks pale. I can't really distinguish here at all. Like, I think this is lower than this, but I can't tell. They look like they're the same fucking color. Or if anything, this is a little darker. And I don't accept that, but I kind of don't accept this either. Like, that seems really odd. Like, there's like a volcano there or something. I don't know. Like, a divot, whatever. I mean, I've seen hilltops that go kind of like that. So I'll buy it as that. Doesn't really make a damn bit of difference because it's the highest terrain in the hex that you're occupying. So it would not have an effect except to create more problems in walking. All right. Okay, so the net effect getting us to the 830 turn. I got an initiative on Campbell, and Wellesley led Mackenzie forward, so we've got kind of these forces coming in to support. Campbell's got actual orders from his initiative to attack up the stream, supporting the defense of the hill. Mackenzie, I'm just using Wellesley to command him. I pulled back a little bit on the hill to form a better defensive line than I had. And like what I was looking at, it looked like it was deformed. One thing I noticed was Campbell was sitting on top of an artillery piece that I forgot about. So, yeah, that British gun hasn't been firing for whatever reason. It just started. It wouldn't be much effect, but there's a chance it could have caused a casualty, and it might have actually, well, it wouldn't have impacted this, but it might have impacted the other artillery, which I don't know where that thing is. I moved it around somewhere. I think it's under there. And what else? I mean, it's fourth corps, so it's not doing anything important right now. And one of the cav recovered, but only one. Not going to do me much good there. Might prevent an outflank, though. That could be of some use. All right. That's it for a little bit. The French begin the laborious process of climbing the hill. Now, another unit got converted into square at the cost of a cav. Stupid British cav. It's just awful. I mean, it's high morale and everything. It's just, it refuses to, like, pay attention to the fact that the infantry has farmed up into a square without a leader present. And yeah, I should have positioned a leader on that unit, but it was the only one that was able to. It has to be stacked with a commander. Okay. But I could have made contact with the enemy had I wished to. However, I would have had to force march. That would cause stragglers. I see no reason for that. This attack is moving, you know, about as rapidly as I like. I pulled out away here a little bit. Technically, the British have fire capability. Actually, this unit may. Let me see it there, because I see that there are two skirmishers stacked there. So yeah, I actually have a skirmisher advantage there. So let's fire at the unit directly in front. That should be on a 1 or 2. Nope. And we'll get to the British turn, but I'm doing the Doom Tower climb and raid, and that is something that allows me to run away for a little while. I need to do that so that I can farm up enough energy to be able to continue this insanity that I'm doing, which really kind of sucks, because I wish I had made my decision before I told people I would be ready for an interview tomorrow, because I'm going to have to be up at like 7 in the morning playing. Now, I may be able to do a nap or something, but here I am on the British turn, and I caught myself in an error, which I corrected. But first of all, the non-error, I got a random event for cav recovery. Even the blown cav get a chance to do it, so they'll do some straggler recovery, probably get back those hit points they lost, which is kind of cool. It used to always be cav losses were irredeemable. They're pretty close to it now, but you can get lucky, and it's not that unlikely. It's It's on a 7 on the random events table, so it's the most likely event result to come up, although game table comes up, I think, twice on the chart. So it may actually be more likely, but then that splits into, in this case, 6. But with the skirmishers, here's where I got wrong. So I had 2 skirmishers here. I could have thrown this one in and gotten a 4 instead of a 2. This time we got a hit successful, and then likewise here, I think I was able to get a little bit of local superiority. But as long as the enemy has skirmishers up there, you're gonna see this kind of thing. Normally, what you see is you just shoot all your skirmishers straight ahead. But no, you can combine them just like you could in something else. But they act to counteract the opposing skirmishers. Anyway, do the English want to attack is the big question. I think the idea of sealing this line better is not a bad one. I'm going to need to move Wellesley forward to get him into contact in order to take advantage of that. Not much more in net effect. The French managed to get 1 hit too. Now, that causes a straggler loss. It doesn't cause an actual casualty, so we mark it with the little half box. Wherever I've got it. No, I can't find it. There we go. And similarly, the French got that. But, you know, that whole line trying to combine fire and whatever to overcome, because they've got equivalent skirmishers more or less throughout the line, you get like a couple of shots at 2 is pretty much what it comes down to. And let's see, the English, so the French are on quite a slope. So the English attacking that slope is not easy. And that means that, well, they're giving up some of the advantage of their slope. They could have, you know, attacked essentially downhill, I think. Not sure. Certainly from here it would be downhill because I've got a higher positioning there. I pulled the one weakest unit out of the line. I hope everybody's in line formation. They should be at this point. I considered launching attacks, but it was just too many movement points, too much pain. And this is a nice defensive line, you know. You can't ask for too much better than that. Forgot the French artillery, actually. Nothing. The only place where I have a gun that's uncovered and able to fire is right here. Basically, it hits on a 1. Otherwise, it just shakes them, and I've already done rallies, so there wouldn't be any effect to that. That'll bring me to the French side of things. In my life, I didn't get a hell of a lot of sleep. A couple of 2 hours here, 3 hours there, because of raid. But after an exhausting day, I ended up succeeding in what my goal was. I beat 2 other people out of my 200-person group or whatever. There were 3 of us basically fighting on it, and you know, I woke up in time. Oh, there's a crow up there playing around in that tree, and ended up. Let's go see what he's up to. Ended up getting the character that I wanted for far more than I wanted to spend both my time. I don't know if you can see him jiggling around in there. He's up to something. For far more effort than I wanted to spend, and also far more in-game resources than I wanted to spend. On the bright side, one of them in-game resources was a pull that was better than the thing I was going for and spent all this effort on. And on the bright side, there are normal sort of events where you collect up pieces, and you can kind of guarantee that you're going to win. It's not as, you know, this was a crapshoot. I could have been facing somebody who had a lot more resources than they were showing that they had out of one or both of the other people and just lost, you know. I had a lot in reserve, and I used about half of it. But, you know, if somebody spends on the game or something, they might have ridiculous amounts, and they might be able to spend money quickly and generate a lot more than I could. And that would have sucked. But on the bright side, that wasn't the case. But no. But yeah, I got something that was even better. So, I mean, when you're playing and picking up the things, I'm still fixated on like the crow moving and whatnot. You know, when you're going by the normal events, you can pretty much guarantee what you're going to get, but it's like 2 weeks of fairly heavy investment, not all the way through, just in terms of time and resources and whatnot. And I've missed the last couple of those because I didn't like what they were offering. I didn't really like what they were offering here either. But I was like, wow, I think I can get this. And I thought I could get it for, I don't know, like 25,000 points, whatever that is. Ended up going to me at 37, which, you know, had I known in advance, I wouldn't have done. But I'm happy with the results because of the other thing I got. And I got my interview coming up. It's actually not at 4, it's at 3. But I'm kind of stressing about it because even though, you know, I was selected by my coworker, I'm also kind of, I don't know the kind of things like, I'm going to give bad answers is basically the thing, because I've been out of even interviewing for 6 months. And, you know, I'm looking over some stuff and I'm like, even within that, it was like a part of the job that, yes, I was one of maybe 3 or 4 people who knew the most about it. She was the top in it. And in our group. But I never felt like I was really comfortable with it. The particular side of things that we're looking at. And, you know, the group she's in is using tools and stuff I've never used. I did it manually, so don't know. We'll see. I guess it's time for the big push. World events, and Jordan's trying to get rid of his delay so he can set out and give his orders. Who's he giving them to? I guess these guys. Yeah. I'm kind of loathing this idea. But I felt like I had to jump in because I had my interview. And it went terrible. I mean, I warned her in advance. I'm not really comfortable with the subject matter that we'd be dealing with. And I don't know. I just don't know. I feel like she'll probably give the excuse because she threw in a question late. They're moving from pure work from home to a hybrid solution for all roles or something. Would I be comfortable with that? I'm like, no. And I think she knew that. So that may have been the cover. But the truth of the matter is, she has to be able to find more people more competent in this particular aspect of security than me. All right. But let's drown my sorrows in playing. And honestly, I had so many apprehensions about like not being retired anymore. The only reason that I was interviewing was that I knew her, you know, and figured the work environment and everything that was being presented sounded good enough. Plus, it's not like I'm happy in my retirement, and the extra money would be nice, but on the other hand, it would interfere with my addiction, man. Okay, so we did the skirmisher fire, and the artillery for that matter, in the sort of pre-fire phase before movement. And you can see we're softening up the Brits. Now, this makes things interesting. If I hadn't gotten so many results, most exciting, this disorganized, I would have just pounded in with everything into the Brits and taken a ton of close combat attacks. But what relates closer to how I used to play these games is sitting here at this range, ready to exploit if I want to, and you know, just performing these fires. And I may not want to attack on over here because I'm going to expose my line. Over here, I'm weakening these. There's some chance, given that I've got like a 1 in 2 possibility of hitting, of being able to get those units disorganized before I march in on them. Now, I probably want to slam into this, simply because a disordered unit is in really bad shape, right? Of course, another hit and I rout it. So maybe I want to do that. You know, maybe I just want to stand here and shoot him at long range with my skirmishers. This isn't always an option in scenarios. So like, I think in some of the earlier ones, the Aspernestling, the Austerlitz, the Allied armies who were primarily on the offensive in at least at Austerlitz, didn't have as many skirmishers or as good as skirmishers. But the Brits and the French are even up, right? But all the same, you know, the French, when they're advancing, might want to just sit back and degrade the English forces enough. Maybe even to the extent of pushing some artillery right up into the attack line and firing at, you know, a couple hundred yards or whatever the range is here. That could be really, really impressive. Of course, putting the guns so close up there exposes them to skirmisher fire unless you have enough skirmishers to defend them. They become, you know, targets. But I've got the guns getting close. That's a calf. Something in me says that's the right way to do this. Not just charge willy-nilly. Not try to break the British line, you know, without really trying to take advantage of the fact that, quite simply, I have more units and more skirmishers in the field right now. Now, the Brits have like an extra skirmisher here I could pop in. Stuff like that. They could flank my line. There could be issues. But I'm really tempted to not go charging up the hill, but stand at range and exchange fire, just like I would if this was the old system. Now, in the old system, you would be doing casualties and everything, not just weakening morale. But the truth of the matter is, it's the morale weakening. By the way, this is disordered because it's a wrecked unit, which it only took a shaken result from skirmishers. It's not a second shaken. But there's something very tempting about just taking my time to launch the best attack I can rather than slamming up. Now, the danger to it is, and I did check this after I rolled my fires, unfortunately, but the attack stoppage checks, because Victor took this on initiative, he needs to roll a 4 or higher on 2 dice to continue his attack. That will fail eventually. So that's where I sit, is do I want to risk that or not? That disordered unit is still going to have the advantage of height on me, which means I have to check my morale first. But if I've got a good morale unit there, I think I'll go in. In a situation I don't like, I've got the Royal Guard here. By the way, notice the wonderful D morale. Joseph's Royal Guard is garbage. The Grenadiers are too. I moved this out of this hex, and it moves in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 to there, getting me almost to the place. But I can't, because the cav has very different movement rates than the artillery, I can't move them as a stack. So now the artillery moves, so the cav has this weird, this is really the heart of it. It's this 2 points per track. So I can't just walk along the track with the cav like I would normally. I don't know why that's set up that way. But now I've got like a horse artillery, which is going to be paying 1 per for the track and can move quite quickly and probably wants to go along that. And then Joseph can go wherever he wants. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can't quite get as far. Because by going overland instead of on the following the track, I get a cheaper movement. Now in some cases it's cheaper to, or at least easier. And this is going to be able to move wherever the hell it likes, which is fine. And then this thing, 1, 2, 3, just keeps going there. I get the facing changes for free if I follow tracks. Now, I like simplicity, and this is one of the things that I did not like about the Labatt system, is I had to worry about all kinds of different complex little movement cost numbers, and I feel like this system has now taken that on in terms of like being maybe more accurate, but more annoying to boot. Now I've got like this guy. What is this guy? This guy's a cav, and he's like leading these 2 infantry division, the rest of his division's on infantry, and it's chasing after him. Doing 1 close assault was painful. That's why I didn't do them much under the old system. It's the only way to fight in this one, though, for the most part. I mean, yeah, I'm doing something else. Trying something else now. Trying a more subdued attack, right? But that subdued attack is iffy. The Brits were able to get enough concentration, they shook another unit. Those shaken units are problematic because the French are going to have to check their morale first. And if that's like a B unit that's shaken, we're getting down to the sea level here, where we're getting down to sea level, where it's like, yeah, there's a fair chance that I fail. Sure, it's only a third, but you know. Chances are I succeed, but it's just guaranteed. It doesn't matter what the Brits are like. And then here I routed and actually destroyed the unit. I got a really bad combination of hits. The Brits got like a 6 on their die roll. I got a 1. I'm limited to no more losses than the loser takes. So I would have been getting a 2-3 M-1. So instead, because I rolled a 1 here, and I got a 1-4 on the Brits, which, you know, kills 1, but straggles 4. Here, it kills 1, straggles 3, and I get the morale loss as well. So, not in the best of positions for having made that attack anyhow. The uphill doesn't affect anything except who checks first, which is the big deal, right? The big deal is, especially if you're facing crappy troops, can you just break them? You know, can they run? But these guys will hold decent terrain against, you know, okay units some of the times. Yeah, okay, that doesn't sound very exciting. I'm also sending my artillery, the horse artillery, around to support this attack. And let's see, I've got a gun here that was going to cover this if they had to move back. The fact of the matter, though, the attack slows down, right? As you get more and more shaken units and whatever, you're like, I'm not so sure I want to attack. Probably need to move Victor forward a little bit. But yeah. And I've done, you know, I am so exhausted by that 1 close assault. It takes about 5 minutes to do a close assault. If you do a whole bunch of them, they take maybe a couple minutes each. But it's not a matter of looking things up in the rules or whatever. It's just, I don't know. It just takes longer. I feel like 5 minutes may be too long, but you got to unstack the units. You got to pull the French, and this is why I don't show it all. I pull the French here. I spread them out. I have to spread the British out in location. look things up and everything. It's just become a much more painful system than it used to be. But that's, the advantage that the realism applies. Maybe the old system was relatively realistic if you launched your charge attacks. The problem was you could do a lot of damage with just firing at this range. Here you can't do that damage, but what you can do is you can soften the enemy up with your skirmishers. However, as we see, didn't really work all that well. The French are also being softened up, and it's worse for them to be soft because they have to penetrate the British, you see. Because I started the British turn, because this map, first of all, this is not a big battle. And this map is not as terrain intensive as, say, Vimiero was. And we have a real engagement happening here. And the first couple were kind of small maps. It would have worked well in Marengo. I want to go into a little bit of detail about what's going on here, kind of at the tactical level. First of all, I had a routed skirmisher down here. It couldn't have been there. It had to route further. Wellington's run over to go talk to them and give them some what for. I want to move Payne forward a little bit, and we'll move this thing forward too. It's on the river. It's no good. Those are moving forward, not generating a countercharge. They're staying at a distance from that, but to prevent any kind of flanking action from happening, they'll be able to stop the French infantry and turn it into a square if it tries to move. Of course, if they charge, they can be countercharged by the French cav. So that actually is an issue in either of these hexes, or this one actually, but not in this one. The English have rotated this unit's facing, well, first of all, they got this unit into a disordered situation, which opens up all kind of interesting stuff. I moved this Mackenzie crappy unit up onto the hill, but I couldn't really do anything too useful with it. I couldn't get it up here to plug this, and I'm within range. But I didn't have enough movement points without forced marching. But what I could do is, after disordering this isn't going to be able to fire anymore. I've rotated this so that I'm presenting a zone of control, which causes morale loss if you try to move from like one zone to another. So if I try to just force my way into here, it's just not going to work. It also, gets me into firing on these. I might not last very long there. I've also consolidated my skirmishers so that I get a little bit more firepower than I had now that I know where the French are hitting. Pulled a few off the line. The French will be doing the same. They'll be moving those up and getting their own superiority. But, whoever has the superiority causes more morale losses on the line, as well as a few stragglers. This unit's disordered because, again, like the British unit that got disordered, it ended up breaking. So it got a shaken and another layer on top of that. Was there more I wanted to talk about here? The artillery didn't do anything. I kind of wanted to go into, how the tactical defense is being arranged there. There is currently a gap. This is a French unit facing a gap in the line. But there's not a hell of a lot I can do with that. And now that I've, refused my flank, as it were, this would not be protected, except these guys can't shoot because they're disordered. Now, I had two options with this. Just like the French had options, I could have charged in and probably done, probably lit up that unit because they'd have to check morale first. They're disordered. That would be a powerful way to break the situation. Let me see. 1, 2, you had to change formation and facing. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to slide his way in there. That's the problem. And I don't want to leave a 2-hex gap which is what would happen if I charged forward. But it would be incredibly powerful for me to make that attack down there, presumably, because it's before the French get their artillery into place over there. It's really fucking appealing, actually. But I feel like it weakens the English position too much. What if I do this? We'll think about that unit in a moment. And I fall back here. Does that give me additional protection? Yeah, because now I'm getting some support from that unit. I'm giving up a hill space, but I'm threatening this. I'll resolve the battle there. That's just a mechanical aspect. It's painful as shit because I gotta pull these guys off, put them here, blah, 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 blah. I pulled these guys out. I'll show you this. Why not? We haven't done it in a while, and somebody was asking me to show a little bit more. V-low, first of all, I have to really look at this to make sure because it's kind of confusing. There's this V-Longworth and V-low. And I'm assuming this is V-low. He is still an A-size unit with a B morale. I have to look those things up. He's got a leader with him that's not going to help much, but he's charging in, and that is the 95th line 3-1. Some skirmishers and a better leader. That better leader is going to be a problem. 95th line is over here. It is a B-sized unit with a C morale that is wrecked. Okay. Now, we look here. We haven't really done a complicated one in quite a while. I may have blown one up in Talavera, but we looked this up, and the attack is coming from a higher position. This is higher terrain than here. And I have to remember the 2 hexes that are involved in this. Now, normally I would have these guys spread out more, but things are just too crowded there. Okay. We said he was a C morale, I think. This is why it's so expensive and why I have to keep looking back and forth. So the base is 3. He's disordered. That brings his base up to 5. He's wrecked. That brings it up to 7. Skirmisher disadvantage, no. They're equal. Commander advantage, though, brings it, does not, that's a +1. That brings it down to 6 again. Opponent's stack is twice the size. A is twice the size of B, so that brings it back to a 7. And you'll see these numbers, I'm applying them opposite. That's because these are modifiers to the die roll. I'm getting the base number by reversing them. The British attack in line. Ooh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Oh well. That would be a very British thing to do. So that brings it down to a 5, I believe, right? Because that's a -1. If I roll a 5 or a 6, I'll worry about it. I get a 4. That means the French unit breaks. The British never had to check any morale at all. Okay. So, that chooses which one of these 2 rows I use. Since the French broke, the attacker won, and now I'll roll a die, and the defender's losses will be on the red die because the British are doing damage to them. The attacker's losses will be using the blue die against the Brits. So we look at these. I don't worry about the attacker's losses right away because they could be reduced and modified. However, I can set them up. They're a B morale. They are not big. They're attacking in line, which would potentially be a problem. No, column's the problem. Oh, line affects the size up on a firefight. So I'm a B morale with a 1. The Brits are going to take no losses. Awesome. Do they bloodlust? They're bloodlust results, no, they're not. I thought there were off here. Yeah. On an unmodified roll of 1, unwrecked A and B morale units get a bloodlust marker. I don't remember it because, you know, it's baked into the other, there's checks for morale in the old system. They're not here. So the only way you can get a bloodlust is off of a 1. But now the Brits are hitting, they were C morale with a 4. The attackers in line, yeah, it does affect. So it gets a -1 to that. That's a 3. It's not a big unit. It's not knight. So the French unit gets hit with a 1-7. And we'll mark that down. It was the 95th line. I switch hands because I can't write with the hand I need there. That's 1. There's 7 stragglers more. And now this becomes a permanently wrecked brigade. 7 stragglers more plus 1 that I just wrote over. So the unit vaporizes. The skirmishers do not have to take any losses. That's my understanding. But they will rout from the space. If the French took losses, they get a leader loss check. It would take an 11 or 12 for that to do something. I'll move the pieces. Hoping for a more resounding hit than that. Even though I cleared a hole in the line, you can see now I have to choose my facing. I'll face this unit because these guys are kind of tied down with the units in front of them. They probably can't turn away safely, I say, because getting hit in the flank does not affect you at all. Yeah. Getting hit in the rear is all that matters. And that's a major difference, and that's what makes the hex point facing work in this game, because flank is not that big a deal. You can't move into your flank, but you can be you don't take a morale hit for flank here. You do, I think, take one here. It's not a morale. The artillery has trouble facing when it's hit from the flank, so you don't get the full fire value. So that gives you some idea of what each single effort is. Once I'm, kind of competent with the rolls and utilizing them, and I remember them well enough that, except maybe the first one today of this battle, it all flowed like that. But like I said, it takes a while. And it's very easy to forget some of those values, especially if you can't spread the pieces out, and I was unable to there. Now, because I withdrew, and there's no withdrawal fire or anything like that, artillery would get an opportunity fire as I leave. Skirmishers don't. So because I withdrew, I get to remove those. And Wellington is bonusing those skirmishers. Yeah, that's probably high enough. For B morale, yeah. So they become disordered skirmishers. But skirmishers are really, really valuable and important. So getting them on the line. And then my cav, I don't have a marker for anything special. This guy's alive. I checked for that one. That's a B morale cav. The base number's 4. I don't think there's anything that affects that. So that becomes unblown as well. I could have moved it up closer, and then it would have, been able to affect things more, but I don't really see a need for that. If this guy charges, well, see, here's the problem. Yeah. So I can't reach this hex with this cav. So if this guy starts moving and I do an opportunity charge, and this guy countercharges, this cav won't be able to involve itself. But this one still will. And, my line is good, mostly. Yeah, I have a defect. But that unit sticking out is not optimal at all. Anyway, I wanted to go into a little bit of detail for whatever reason on that one. I feel like we've put a lot of video in very little time, but I want this battle to develop a little bit further before I cut it, because my feeling is this battle is going to decide the game, right? And it could well be that, there's a few turns where I'm withdrawing, and then, or where I'm sitting across from each other lobbing some shells, and then I decide, yeah, that's it. There's just not gonna, And that would be a matter of, oh, look, the French army is is too tired to keep going. And they look like they're beginning to take some serious hits. We can take a look at this. You know, we've got this unit wrecked and gone. We've got this unit close to wrecked. Sure, there are a lot of units left in the game. The whole Fourth Corps hasn't even come into play yet. So, you know, if this battle ends up much more abortive than I expect it to be, if it ends up over quicker, there's a lot left. There's a lot of gas left in the tank, even though the French have taken some hammering. But I don't think the Brits are going anywhere, and I don't think the French are going to be able, you know, if the French can't drive the Brits off, they're going to take heavy losses fighting over this piece of terrain. And that's the battle, man. That's what's going to happen. But I feel like there's going to be enough that I'm not at the halfway point, and that's kind of where I want to stop. The halfway point in the battle, I don't mind if there's, you know, some excess turns where there might be a little bit of maneuvering, a little bit of fighting over you know, a couple of these victory point hexes. This is a little weird. I think I'm entering into a manic stage, something I haven't been in a long, long time. Like, I went downstairs, watched a video, spammed a tiny bit on Facebook, made some tea, and then came right back up here. It's not the game that's doing it. I think it's actually like the fear of a change, having to like go to work again or something. But like every time there's a transition, it throws me into weird states, because I did the dishes earlier today, started cleaning up some stuff. I just don't know. Anyway, what you've seen me in is, you know, for the past couple years, really, is sort of this, the general state I'm in, right? This is my natural status. If I like fall in love with somebody or something, I go into a kind of a manic state for a while. But then I slowly degenerate into something that's more depressive, but it just keeps going. It's like it stays at that level until there's a threat of change. Anyway, I started the French turn, and everything started happening. First of all, I rolled an event. Cav recovery doesn't affect them. They don't have any cav that's in trouble. Then I rolled for this order. It's 9:30 now, it just came. And I grabbed 2 blue dice, and I rolled like what looked like a 65, but you can't tell with 2 blue dice, so I'm like, well, that's not allowed. So I re-rolled it, and I got an 11, which is another distortion here. And we don't know about that distortion, so I can't do anything about it. But I also finally got Jourdan to get his orders, so that's kind of where we are at the initial stage of the turn. Again, you know, I'm breaking things down more. I like to think that, like, oh, I'm doing this because, you know, the game demands it or whatever, just like when I went into the details there. But I don't think that's it. I think it's the manic coming in. Notice something I forgot. I forgot to check Bloodlust recovery, I guess. On a 1 or 2, he loses that before the turn starts. Okay. This is important because shooting a bloodlusted unit with skirmishers doesn't do a hell of a lot. I did it anyway because I basically didn't have many firing opportunities. I had the opportunity here. The opportunities along here don't generate any fires for me. Up here, the Brits have pulled away, so I don't have any fires. So the only shot I had was here and here against this, which gave me a 1 or 2, plus the artillery fire. And I got nothing, of course. Now, I look at this unit and I consider him, he's in column. He could just march right down. He'd be fighting his way uphill across the stream. He'd take a shaken for going across the stream. The thing is, Bloodlust doesn't work quite how it did in the old system. In the old system, it was basically an impenetrable armor. Like, you would not fail a morale check. The worst that happened, well, I think you could end up shaken out of it on a bad enough result. But no. You either lost the blood. I don't remember. Here it works like any other morale level. You're like at a morale +2 or something, effectively. But here what happens is it's a modifier on your check to stand table, and not a very big one. So if somehow a shitty unit becomes bloodlusted, or you're getting hit in the flank and you're bloodlusted, well, you're getting hit in the rear and you're bloodlusted, here it would be flank, so it wouldn't have an effect. It kind of works out like you're just a regular unit. Whereas before, it was like this armor. All that you had to do was check to see, did you lose your bloodlust? You know, there were certain effects that would cause multiple morale hits, but I don't remember what they are. Like, I'm so used to this system, this version now, that I don't see it. So I'm kind of at a stuck point. I would like to recover these units and stuff like that. So I don't know how much the French are going to be advancing at this point. Okay, so let's try to catch what's happening here. First of all, Joseph was sitting with Desolé and issued him some orders to move around to the right flank of First Corps and support it. Those went into D5 status, even though in person, because, you know, it's Joseph and the sub-commanders are not great in this. Other than Victor. Victor is good. Victor went to go rally. Elsewhere, I'm not doing much. I unlimbered these guns. They're going to get picked off, possibly, by the skirmishers. But I don't really want to protect them. I could have launched an attack in here that would have protected the guns. However, attacking bloodlusted units just doesn't seem like a great idea. Like, I'm not going to win the fight. I'm probably going to get flung back and be in worse shape because they want to fight and I don't. So I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to let them get a shot on my guns. Basically, they have a 1/3 chance of picking my gunners off. If they fail at that, they get another 1/3 chance. And then the guns get to fire back, which is not optimal, but I moved, I don't know what the hell that is. Skirmishers, I think, across the river here. Some guns moving across the river here. Using guns offensively is tricky, but it can be incredibly effective. So, we'll see. Over here, I don't want to advance. I want to recover these units, like I said. And I feel like there's enough of a gap here that I'm going to be able to exploit the situation as long as I'm careful. Usually I'm not very careful. So the English get to fire. Fortunately, cautious is not the same thing as careful. So I did not advance here. It's not the focus of my attack, so I figure, well, I'll stand and I'll trade shots. But the British have superiority in terms of skirmishers right now, and we're able to basically get stragglers on both of these, shake these units. They could collapse that line fairly, you know, as long as they maintain their superiority. Plus, the gun got knocked out, and I really should have unlimbered this guy facing, just in case that happened, so that I'd get a second shot there. Elsewhere, not much happened. Oh, Jourdan ran down to give his orders. He was basically one movement point short of being able to reach them. This guy can't go out and meet him. I guess. I don't know. He has orders. Maybe he can. Let's see what 1DR is. Move to defend. No. 2508 in await orders. So I don't feel like I have. Although this is actually 678. But I feel like he's parked where he did, and he did it for a reason. And I don't think that the leader can just ride off and say, hey, that's Rodon down there. He's just watching him. So that's going to delay this a little bit. It's not a big deal. He's not really doing anything too important. What the hell? He's moved to defend the left flank of the army. That's going to be somewhere down here. It's not going to do a damn thing in this situation. And then we rally. And that's pretty much an automatic thing. These are all going to rally. And that gets a die roll. Really feels like some sort of opportunity was missed here, you know, where I should have looked at the situation and said, you know what, I'm outgunned, but I'm out-united, right? Like there's more men there in general, not just more skirmishers. So like plowing into that stuff might have cost me the inevitable more quickly. So I shouldn't beat myself up too much about it, but I feel it's just what I do, man. And beyond that, like, my brain doesn't work right when I'm in sort of these manic phases or when I'm going into them. It's like, if I was a little bit mellower, I would go through the British phase. But I feel like I can't. I feel like I have to run away and go do something else. Okay, zooming in on the main battle as it continues. I slept out on my beanbags for 3 or 4 hours. Usually I only sleep on them for like a couple hours at a time. A little bit longer. It's kind of weird. I woke up, the sun woke me up, basically. Once it gets to a certain level out there in the living room area, it just gets so bright and so hot. It was neat to wake up that way, but I'm going to have to go back and sleep again very shortly. But I did there was no event, and I did the British pre-fire. And this is kind of interesting. So this version of the system, and you know, is just so different from any other, anything else that I'm used to, because you can do things like here and here. I had enough skirmishers comparatively to be able to guarantee a hit. Now, those skirmishers, if spread out more, you know, making different fires, might have been able to get lots of hits. But instead, because there's so many of them, concentrated against what were actually so few. And this is showing that the French definitely made a mistake. They should have launched their attack, or should have launched an attack there last turn. Because now these units have to fall off the line. They can't stay there. Now the question is, do the Brits launch an attack and try to maul them? And I'm allowed to do that even without orders in this system. You're allowed to actually close assault without orders. Well, it's not really without orders. It's without orders because Wellington went in there and moved them around. But I've got a couple of interesting things. First of all, if I gain these hexes, that strengthens his position. So I think I am going to actually assault, and then I got to worry about forming the line up here. But if I push the French back a little bit further, I gain some positional advantage. So that's going to be a couple more attacks there. These wouldn't get to fire because they're disordered. Of course, if I move up here, I'll be facing units that I can probably get skirmishers in there to screen their skirmishers, so it's no big deal. But in the long run, there's more skirmishers up in this north flank for the French. So they're going to be able to do the kind of things the Brits were able to do here. But, you know, if I'm able to get, let's see, this was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points of skirmishers, 4 different skirmisher units. And there's only 1 there. So that gets me a 6. On a 1 to 6, I have the effect. And the effect is 1 straggler and 1 morale loss. Well, broke this situation. All right, so let's launch those attacks, I guess. Oh, we also picked off someone here with and caused a straggler. Launching these attacks, I'm allowed to do that because Mackenzie here is in default defense. This is actually in defend orders as well. And these guys are in defend. Everything here is in some form of defend orders, which means I can assault. Now, Mackenzie's in a weird sort of, well, default defense means I can't move Mackenzie himself except to lead a charge 1 hex away. He's been kind of put in place by Wellesley. However, this is within range of Mackenzie, so I was able to move this into place. I'm not able to get in any screen from skirmishers, so that's going to get hammered by skirmishers, unfortunately. But I needed to fill the gap here. This guy could have come charging down to get these guns. They would have probably just run away, and my unit would be stuck way back here in a really stupid location. But unfortunately, he's in an exposed spot. Those guns are going to unlimber conceivably and cause some harm. If I had already unlimbered them, they would be already a problem. All right, it's time for the French fire to start coming back, and then we beat up on these two poor disorganized units. A little bit more room here, so I'm going to show you what I have to do to spread out to handle a melee attack in this game, as far as I'm concerned. There are other ways that are less efficient, but I have to unstack the unit essentially in order to be able to see which unit is there, how many skirmishers there are, what the morale level is, and all that. And granted, the morale level's here. Once I know the unit, I'm okay. So, I could use some kind of temporary marker to indicate the units over on this chart, like a, I don't know, like a bobby pin or something, maybe. And then over here, I have this unit as well spread out in the same sort of way. Just because this is the quickest way for me to cope with all the information present. I'm not going to go through the whole mechanism again. It's just too painful. And one of the reasons it's so painful is I do have to check to see, hey, what is the size of the two units for the 2 times size factor and stuff like that, where I'm constantly looking back and forth. Is it wrecked? Is it this? As I check the lines. If you internalize these values more, it probably becomes a little bit easier, but then I'd probably also forget some of the values. We ended up in a situation where the French actually held. They needed a 5, and I think the Brits needed a 4. They also held. The Brits are attacking in line. They were counting on wrecking, on winning on contact. That puts me into something a little different. Not onto one of these charts, which is one side or the other won the fight, but the British are going to be presumably repulsed. We'll see. But we're going to be on the firefight table. Now, the French are in column and are still size A to C. So the red die will be against them on here. Let's take a look. That'll be a +1, but -1 for different elevations. It's not just skirmishers. Okay. And the blue die will be against the English, will be in line. They're size A. They're going to be over here on the more expensive chart. Different elevation is at -1 though. And we'll roll this. Okay, well, we got big hits on each. So the English, the column cancels out, so that'll be a 2-2 loss result. But the French, there's a -1 for their fire on the English, so they'll be at a 2-2 M-2. The Brits are going to be disorganized by this. And I don't believe that there's any adjustment in morale for having a leader here. I think the only place there is on the artillery fire table. I'm not sure. And yeah, so each is going to be taking 2 losses and 2 stragglers. The Brits will be forced back, and I make a leader loss check. And I could take losses on skirmishers. I could take half the losses on skirmishers if I wanted to. But skirmishers I just find to be way too effective. I also have a problem with skirmishers, which is when you do start losing skirmishers, you can't track their losses. There's no way, so all the losses are on paper here. When skirmishers take losses, if it's not actually an issue. So you might want to avoid wrecking a unit. And I think I said this in one of the earlier ones. You might want to avoid wrecking a unit and take a loss on a skirmisher. It's like losing something much, much better, but units getting wrecked is worth victory points. In the original Austerlitz rules, in the version 1.0, skirmishers were basically stragglers that you threw out there. And if you lost them, they counted as losses against your unit. Here, if you lose them, I think it's just basically, there's no way to account for them. If you took casualties into account and counted casualties, you'd have to count the skirmishers as casualties for that. But they don't count towards wrecking the unit, which is the only thing that causes victory points in this and most of the scenarios, everything that's developed under 3.0 at least. Which, functionally makes it possible to calculate the victory, but kind of feels wrong that, like, the destruction of those skirmishers doesn't really hurt you at all in terms of victory points. So, I don't know. I kind of feel like if skirmishers are lost, someone should have to pay the price for them being lost. Like a unit or something. But I also feel like they should be a little bit more tied to their units than they are. They're able to flock around, so you get these localized concentrations, the Brits on one side, the French on the other, which feel a little goofy. No morale losses on this table. Well, I mean, there was the 2 for the British, but it wasn't enough. Both units were wrecked, which drops them another. So both units fled. The French retreating through here ended up disorganizing this unit. This would have been even more problematic if I'd fought this battle first, because it's possible the Brits own that space. And I don't know what happens in that case. I'd have to look that up. I think there's definitely some penalty for retreating through enemy zones, but I was here. I had to go through a zone in either case, but there isn't a zone there because I'm still fighting. Brits retreated back to Wellesley. Let's take a look at let's do the other battle without taking as much of a look even as we did this time. The Brits got luckier, and the French failed their morale check, which is kind of the expected, right? If you need a 5. But, and a 6 always succeeds, so no matter how shitty your unit, so unlike the skirmisher type thing, there's always a chance when you go into close combat that you will have to fight. So don't count on your big unorganized horde charging down the hill necessarily making it, even if the opponent is, in trouble. But we broke the French. Losses were, I forgot. It was 1 casualty each. I think 3 stragglers for the French and 4 stragglers for the French and 3 for the British. But the Brits lost a morale level going in here, and they did drive the French away. That took the skirmisher that was sitting here, I guess, with them. And so, we've done a lot, but the French unit is wrecked, I believe. Oh, sure. The 63rd, I think. Not going to paw through and find out again. Yeah, the 63rd is wrecked, But the English unit is this von Longworth, which is nearly wrecked because it's a small unit. You know, they're the British, man. They didn't have huge units for the most part. And now I think we're on the rally step, where just taking a look at things, over here we get automatic rallies, but elsewhere these guys get to roll, but elsewhere we're well, this guy is in contact with the enemy, so he's not going to rally. I gotta swap batteries. That is probably all I have to say. The Cav inched forward a little bit to help cover this gap because the English hill was falling up the hill. With all the detail I put into describing the battles and whatnot, I think this video has gone long enough. I'm going to load it up. But our final position here, the British line is shortening and falling back up the hill, but we've broken the flanking defense. That's all First Corps stuff that's fighting there. Yeah, I got some Fourth Corps up here, but they're not actually engaged and can't until they get some sort of orders. But there's a strong set of French units up here, and I still don't know if the Brits can hold out. You know, the point is I put enough effort over here to breaking what's there. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to roll for that bloodlust. And they lose it. My fingernails are long enough I can do that. I'm really clumsy with the tweezers, and I'm getting worse. Kind of a palsy type thing happening, even when I'm not drinking coffee. All right, so let's send this up. Yeah, I know we're in the midst of the battle, but I think we were going to be no matter what. Like, I kind of expected to get more towards here, but I went into so much detail so far in this video that I think it's worth doing. All right, up it goes.